Hi, this is Dominic Keating. I played Lieutenant Malcolm Reed on Enterprise, as you probably know, and you are listening to the NX 7062 podcast. Enjoy.
Welcome to the NX 7062 podcast. We are back. I know I took last week off. I love, obviously, being in front of the camera. I love my work with Lambda Quadrant, but sometimes even this beautiful voice has to take a break, and I just didn't have a voice to come on last week. I missed y'all. I will say that. I absolutely missed y'all, but I needed to be sure that I was well because tonight I have a very special guest. I am so excited. He's new, which is, big. I've been having a lot of recurring guests lately. But Mohamed and I met back when I participated in Virtual TrekCon. I had a little virtual booth at Virtual TrekCon, and Mohamed and I met and we started talking, and I thought he would be a perfect person to have on the podcast. And then he upped his game because I found out that he was an Enterprise fan. So I am so excited to welcome to the podcast tonight, Dr. Mohamed Noor. Yay!
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I had to go with Enterprise gear.
I mean, I was going to have you on anyway, but the minute you said in that one chat, I love Enterprise, I went, wait.
Enterprise needs so much more love than it gets. I don't understand why it doesn't get so much more love.
It's this, absolutely. I, of course, 100% agree. For those of you that don't know, my love of Enterprise I always liked it. I have watched except for the original series, I've watched everything in its original incarnations. So I'd seen Enterprise when it came out.
Same.
But I didn't fall in love with it until after meeting Connor and Dominic in 2016. And then I'm like, well, I've got to go back and rewatch it. And I started rewatching it, and I fell in love. Absolutely just fell in love with it. And it just went right up to the top and became my favorite. And speaking of favorites, I've got some of my favorite people here tonight. Robert and Magic Lasso are joining us in the chats. So we're glad to have them here. Robert is a longtime Star Trek fan, and Magic Lasso is a personal friend of mine that I'm trying to get to cross over into Star Trek.
Oh, nice.
Hasn't quite gotten there yet.
Yeah.
But one of the
reasons Enterprise leveled up when my son and I. So my son actually, I got him into Trek, and I used Voyager as sort of the gateway Trek. Because I thought, if we go back to the original series, kids nowadays they're like, "What is this?" They're not gonna like that at all. So I said, "Well, let me start with Voyager. It's pretty. It's not as dark as Deep Space Nine. It's it's a good entry point." At the time, he was probably like 9 or 10, something like that. He got into Voyager and he liked it pretty well. Then we moved from that to Enterprise, and he could feel that like up in quality. This was, of course, before Discovery and all them were out.
Right.
And he really liked Enterprise a lot too. So he's a big fan of it. Interestingly, he's never gotten into Next Gen. I think somehow it's just a little dated for him. Like the graphics are a little dated. It's right. Very thought provoking in a way that he's not like, I don't care.
Well, and and I've said this a lot of times. I've drawn this parallel with Doctor Who. I was never into the original Doctor Who based pretty much on the graphics and the quality of the productions because back then. But then when somebody told me I should start watching it with David Tennant and I watched a couple of Tennant episodes, went back and watched the Eccleston episodes, and I was in love. And because I loved it so much, and because it's like Star Trek, its heritage has spanned those 50 years. It's all canon.
Mm-hmm.
So my love of Doctor Who made it so that I could go back and watch episodes that were older and have an appreciation for them and the stories and the characters. Mm-hmm. So I could kind of overlook like the tinfoil wrap Cybermen and everything else that went along with like the 60s and 70s.
Delete.
I will admit, I can't watch a lot of William Hartnell just because of the dated attitudes towards the female characters.
Yeah, fair.
Like stay here and don't scream, and like the original Dalek episode. I specifically wanted to watch the first episode with the Daleks, and I couldn't finish it because first of all, it's not an hour. It's serialized, so it's 2.5 hours depending on how many episodes. And I'm glad though that I at least had that knowledge.
Yeah.
Because when you watch Peter Capaldi's that Christmas episode that he did with the original Doctor.
Yeah. You know who that is. Yeah.
You got it, and you could laugh along with it because you realized they were poking fun at themselves.
That's right.
He scored those points so long ago. Oh my God, domestic! I'm sorry I didn't see you jump in. Hi, thank you. Another one of my loyal viewers. I love that. Why I do this so I can see you guys at least once a week. He had scored points when he said he loved Enterprise. These are the Trip Tucker sprinkles.
I love the Lower Decks reference. That's awesome.
Oh my God, it took them 5 episodes to get there, and then when they finally made an Enterprise reference, it was so good. And I've said this before, but do not think I am not going to go tease Connor about Trip Tucker sprinkles.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I'm totally going to be like, so have you heard about the Trip Tucker sprinkles?
I'm sure he has.
He has or will have by the time I get to him, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to.
Of course. Fair enough.
About it. It might cost me a spot at karaoke, but because every year I'm just like, he's like, you're singing. I'm like, all right. So it might cost me my spot at karaoke, but it also might be worth it. So besides your fabulous attire, the reason that I've invited you on the show is not only can we talk about real science because you are a professor at Duke University, but you are also a science advisor on Discovery. Now, I have to say this because we've had this discussion. You are not allowed to talk about anything from this season, even if it's already happened.
That's correct. Unfortunately, yeah.
So if you guys want to ask him anything, it can either be about seasons 1 and 2 or hypotheticals.
Yeah. Which the good news is I didn't do anything for seasons 1 and 2. So if I say anything, it's just basically an outside view as a scientist and not an insider view at all.
Okay. Oh, not that this has anything to do with Star Trek.
Yeah.
I have seen, actually, there's a really great, and time to do a plug, and I should ask for money for this, but Pluto TV, which is a free app that you can download, has a Star Trek channel. Ooh. And it also has a Doctor Who channel that runs those movies. So I've tuned into a couple of them. I haven't had a chance to actually sit down because you can't record. It's free. You can't record it. So you have to kind of get lucky and get on when they're running them. I've seen bits and pieces of a couple of the Peter Cushing ones, but Pluto TV so far their Star Trek channel is supposed to be running a bunch of stuff. All I've seen is Next Gen.
I was about to ask which ones they have. Yeah.
Right now it's just Next Gen and Next Gen and Next Gen. I'm like, there are so many other things you could be running right now. Oh well, hello, Christopher Abbott, author. So good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. But I guess obviously the first logical question that you ask any scientist that is also a fan of Star Trek is, did Star Trek inspire you to get into the sciences?
I mean, I'd love to say the answer was yes, but I think the two kind of came together. I don't think one directly pushed the other. I mean, I always liked science even as a little kid. I mean, if you go back even to middle school, actually, I looked this up because I didn't necessarily believe it, but I found like my middle school yearbook and somebody wrote in there like, someday you're going to be a biologist. So clearly like it was a direction I was already thinking fairly early on. And I definitely liked, I mean, like you, I didn't watch Star Trek in its original incarnation. I wasn't alive then, but I saw it for the first time and I was very enamored with it. But I think it's just, mutual interest, right? If you like science, you like this thing that's just very focused on basic science exploration. So I think the two reinforced each other, but I don't think
fed each other.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well then let me ask you this.
Sure.
I have a friend that's a doctor.
Yeah.
And we used to goof around because he watched some medical shows and like yell at them about how like House. He's like, House is completely opposite of what an actual diagnostician does. But ER is very, spot on as far as their medical.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
ER is MASH had medical consultants. So before you got involved with Discovery, did you yell at the TV if there's something that seemed like a little off? Like, no, that is scientifically impossible.
It depends on what it is, right? So in the sense that if it's something that just doesn't make any sense, but is plot critical, I'm watching it for entertainment. I know I'm not watching Nova or no, I'm not watching some PBS special. So I take it as that. Whereas if it's something where like they use a word and there is a right word and there's the wrong word and they just use the wrong word, like really, you couldn't like Google that and see. There I get a little bit annoyed. Like, come on, I mean, because and I see this in terms of the consulting too, that as a consultant, like the writers have something they want to do. I don't get to say, or Dr. McDonald is actually the main science consultant for all the Star Trek universe, Dr. Erin McDonald. So I like to say she's like the sheriff of science for Star Trek, and I'm somebody who's sometimes deputized. But if either of us gets asked to do something, the answer can't be no, you can't do that. I mean, that's not an acceptable answer, because like plot trumps all, right? So if they need, basically, if there's, let's say for example, they tell me we need to make this alien turn invisible, and I'm going to say you can't do that, they're like, fine, I'm going to get a gun and call it an invisibility gun, and boom, or something completely ridiculous like that.
Right.
So if something has to happen, you either find a way to make it happen or find a way to get it closer. So those things don't bother me if it's something like there was no better way to do that, fine. Whereas if they just, if they say something, if they like say, for example, that something should be a reference to DNA and they refer to protein instead, I'm like, seriously? It's like you literally just change one word, and like it's not like it's any harder for the actor to say. those bug me.
All right, so Robert would like to know, how are you approached to even be involved?
Oh, I'd love to say I was approached, but no, I actively tried to get my way in. It was
I had no idea
the
who
other way.
I was until I started banging on the door.
Pretty much. No, I tweeted at them for a long time, and that didn't help. But then eventually, a friend of mine knew some of the writers and got me connected with the writers. And then at that point, then I spoke with Michelle Paradise, the showrunner for Discovery. Had a nice, I guess you call it an interview, but it was a nice chat and stuff like that, just to see if it seemed like we'd mesh well. And from there, they said, all right, we're happy to do some contracted work. And again, I'm sort of contracted. I'm not I'm not the sheriff of science. I'm somebody who just gets contracts.
Not like they asked you to come up to Toronto and sit with them.
No, never. I wish. No.
Well, so your focus is biology.
Yes.
So when it comes to consulting on the show, it's basically when they, like you said, when they want an alien to turn invisible, or like the mycelial network,
or something like that. Exactly.
Or drives and those kind of things.
So an example might be, and this didn't happen because again I wasn't involved in season 2, but like for example, that when they had that Red Angel suit in season 2, and they wanted it to work just for Michael and for her mother. And the way they explained it is they said somehow it was tapped into into her mitochondrial DNA. And that was a good call in the sense that mitochondrial DNA is exclusively passed on from mothers to offspring. So Michael's mitochondrial DNA would be identical to Dr. Burnham's mitochondrial DNA. Somebody, I don't know who, came up with that. It wasn't me.
but scientifically it made sense.
Scientifically that made sense, but that would be the kind of thing that they might ask. Like they might have a problem like, okay, we need this suit to tap DNA. We need some way where it's identical between Michael and her mom. Is there a way to do that? And then, if they had asked me that, I would have said the same thing. I would say, yeah, we'll have it, use mitochondrial DNA in some way.
Okay, so this is hopefully this is hypothetical enough that you can answer.
Sure.
But now that they've got Book and he's doing a lot, he's that empath that talks to the animals and all this. Is that something, I guess? So there's a lot more now because there's biology, because they're introducing all these new creatures. Is that?
Yeah, I don't think I can answer that. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. No, I'm just thinking, okay. Well, hypothetically, is that something that they would talk to you about?
Yeah, I mean, if they wanted to, but again, it's not. They don't necessarily run every biological thing by me. So there are things I've been watching this season, for example. That I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I could have advised on that, but I didn't. But it's fair.
Well, I guess that kind of leads to where, like, how many actual scientific advisors are there for the show? I mean, you've got, like you said, you've got the sheriff, and then they have a bunch of different disciplines, scientific disciplines underneath.
So that's a good question. I don't know for season 3 if there were any others besides me and Dr. McDonald. And I noticed in the credits that have been coming out, it just credits the 2 of us. So I think for the current season, I mean, based on the credits, I don't see any evidence that there was somebody else. Now it's possible that somebody just made a quick phone call to somebody or something like that, and they didn't actually make it on the credits because they maybe they just advised on a sentence or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so this is from Christopher Abbott. He said, I guess, well, Chris is an author, so I don't know. So maybe now that he knows that you pitched yourself, you might have given him some ideas.
Well, I didn't pitch story ideas. I just pitched myself as somebody who
but I'm just saying maybe he could, pitch something to start writing Star Trek novels. I mean, or something, where he could just like, yes, it's good to know that they'll listen, and you can get to try and tell them, I guess, that you exist instead of the other way around.
Yeah.
So
they're delightful. I have to say, the writers, the showrunner, they're delightful people. They're very thoughtful. Yeah.
All right. The other thing he said is,
Oh yeah.
This is why my cousin, I have a cousin that's a lawyer. He's like, I don't watch law shows. That's work. I don't.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Fair.
I asked him once because I was obsessed with Law. I still am. I love Law and Order. It's one of my favorite shows. And I asked him once. I'm like, oh, Law and Order. He's like, nope. I'm like, okay, so I guess I can't ask you like how close to the law.
Yeah.
Like how close do they get? So what made you decide to go pitch yourself to Star Trek?
Oh, I'm just because I've always loved Star Trek. I've even all the way back to middle school and high school. I remember when Next Generation was first coming on. I remember being super excited to see the premiere. I just always loved it. And in fact, actually, I remember specifically in college, somebody asking me like, well, what do you want to do when you finish? And one of the things I tossed out there is something I might want to do is like, it'd be really cool to like work with, a TV show like Star Trek and help them with the science on it. Of course, it ended up happening like 30 years later, but still.
No, but then you start saying names like Denise and Michael Okuda.
Yeah.
And who are two of the loveliest people that you'll ever meet. I'm sure you've met them. And they're just such sweethearts. I love them both. But you start going, wait, that's a thing. And maybe I could really.
Yeah. And they did have consultants back for Next Generation. I mean, towards the end there, it was Andre Bormanis was doing it, and then he continued on through Deep Space Nine, Voyager, things like that. And, and he did a good job. He was a physicist by training. So, I mean, he didn't focus so much on the biology, but there is, it's a space show. There's a lot more physics than biology.
Right. And that's why I was wondering, like, how many, if you knew, like, how many disciplines they have within their stable of advisors, because like you said, like, I can consult on the biology of like an animal or like animal vegetable kind of thing, right?
Yep.
Whereas they, when it comes to warp drives and mycelial network, spore drives, it's like, that's not in your wheelhouse. So.
And it's tricky too, because sometimes they try and they have something which would be really good, but if they'd had like somebody in field, they would be like, oh, wait. So I'll give you an example from season 1. There was a comment that Michael Burnham made at one point in time when they were talking about the tardigrade, where they said something like, oh, the tardigrade acquires, or like its microscopic cousins on Earth, the tardigrade acquires some of its DNA by horizontal gene transfer, which was a very insider comment. And it was interesting, the timing of that, because there was a scientific paper published in, I think it was 2015, by some researchers just down the road from me at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, which was the first publication of the genome of a tardigrade. And they said something like, oh, look, it looks like 16% of the genome comes from other species. So it came by horizontal gene transfer. So they incorporate that into this description of the show. Sadly, of course, this is what happens with science. Like, there was a lot of news stories around that and stuff like that. The following year, 2016, which is still before Discovery, somebody showed like, yeah, no, that's not right. So I remember when they said that, like, oh, no. Swing and a miss. but flip side, kudos to them that they were trying to work in some like new hot science that probably there was a lot of press releases about it. But again, they weren't insiders, so they wouldn't have seen the subsequent papers that, no, that's not right.
Oh, ouch. Right. All right, so I forgot Chris did just get he's writes Star Trek features, so
oh, nice. Congratulations, Chris.
Forgot about that. Congratulations publicly, Chris. Congratulations for that. Might have to have you back on the show. We can talk about your writing for Trek, because the show is all about the people that make up Star Trek. Domestic.
Oh yeah. I have it actually here.
Oh yeah, if you want to pitch your book.
There it is. There's my book. Oops, it's a little glary. Live long and evolve.
I love that.
Sorry, it's a little glary. The backstory on that is I was giving talks at conventions and things like that about like depictions of science in Star Trek. But again, these talks aren't to explain Star Trek. The talks are to actually like teach scientific concepts and things like that. And I'm just using Star Trek as a vehicle for it. Well, oh, that's so cool that Christopher says he has it. Thank you. I got approached by Princeton University Press asking me if I wanted to do a public talk and write a book associated with it. And the public talk I was usually giving outside of the conventions was this sort of Why Evolution is True book. Or sorry, Why This Evolution Was True talk. But there's already a book that has exactly that title that was written by my former PhD advisor. You don't need another one. I mean, that one's really good. So she asked me, like, well, do you do any other public talks? I'm like, I do some. They're a little bit outside of what Princeton University Press would normally publish. So I pitched that book to her, and she was like, "Yeah, we can do that." And I did it. And I gave the talk at Princeton, and then basically the book is my introductory, or the Duke introductory course on genetics and evolution, slightly lower level because that's a majors level course, slightly lower level, but using examples from the various Star Trek TV episodes and movies.
Oh, well, there you go.
Oh, yeah.
Anybody that's interested. Where can they get it? Is it on Amazon?
Yeah, it's anywhere. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, whatever your favorite bookseller is. It's easy to find.
Oh, there you go. The answer to this, unfortunately, is no.
Sorry.
Robert, if you can come up with something really, really, really hypothetical.
Or about season 1 or 2.
Or about season 1 or 2. Otherwise, I'm going to get noticed by CBS finally, and not in a good way. And so will he, and he will get in trouble. So
yeah, and I'll not get to consult anymore, which would be bad. Yes, I like doing it.
Incredibly disappointing. So we don't want that to happen because we want you to keep coming back. When would you be allowed? Should I have you on after season 3 is over?
Yeah, once the finale is aired, then season 3 is open.
Wait.
So does Giorgio convince Stacey? I'm not sure what he means by
not sure what that. Yeah, because I love the Mirror Universe. So
yeah,
I think I'm going to have you back on the show, if for no other reason, just to talk about the biology of what's going on with Giorgio right now.
Sure. Yeah.
But we can't talk about it now.
Nope.
But we will talk about it. We will talk about it because and all the speculation about Carl. And whether there's speculation that he's either a Q or maybe a prophet, because they were talking about the
Interesting.
So people have been wondering if he's one of those two.
Did you see the zoomed in pictures of the newspaper?
No.
I saw in some news groups online some like zoomed in people had like tried to catch what some of the headlines were in the newspaper is reading. It had like Worf wins Batleth competition or something like that was one of them.
Oh my god, that's so funny.
I forget what some of the others were, but it was subtle references to there was the quote from the City on the Edge of Forever. Let me help.
Oh my god! I will totally have to look that up. One of the things I loved about Discovery when it first started, the first 2 seasons, I have to say, is the fact that the only thing that they could reference was Enterprise. If they referenced anything, because nothing else had happened yet.
Yeah.
Like, yay, Enterprise! Now they freaking jumped 900 freaking years in the future. Now it's all fair game again.
Yep.
So now we've got Voyager references, the USS Nog, which I thought was great.
Yes.
But this is what killed me is that, and it was a spoiler that was out there. But this is and I'm glad, because otherwise it was so blurred. If you didn't know it was coming, you could have missed it. But meanwhile, the Voyager is right in your face, and I am not a Voyager fan. I'm like, they should have swapped it. They should have had Nog be like the one you could really
center. Yeah.
And then Voyager tucked over to the side. That's how
Fair.
Yeah, but the other thing that I liked is, and I said this, I think, on a previous podcast, and I'm assuming that you caught this, when Georgiou was being interviewed by that doctor guy the first time, and they were talking about April 5th being, a holiday.
Yep.
And she says, well, in my world, that's the day that the Terrans killed the Vulcans. And I'm like, in a mirror darkly.
That's right. Exactly. I love that episode of Enterprise too much. I love the theme music that they have for it and all the visuals from that. Oh,
yes.
Well done.
So good. I love the fact that they figured out how to work the mirror universe in, because that was always Enterprise's problem, was how to make these subtle references without making direct references, because they couldn't.
Yeah.
And so the only way they could do a mirror episode was to make it so that the Prime universe wasn't involved at all.
Yeah, I liked actually in season 1 of Discovery how when they originally went to the Mirror Universe, they had the connections of Inner Mirror Darkly with the Defiant, or whatever the name was, the ship was that went from the original series that went back in times, because they mentioned something about trying to find that ship. I think it was called Defiant. I think it was called Defiant.
It was the Defiant. Yeah, it was the Defiant. It was from the Tholian Web episode.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But they mentioned that in there too, and about how it had gone back in time and gone to that. And it was like, oh, that happened in Enterprise.
Yes, exactly. And that is what gave Hoshi the emperorship of the Terran Empire.
Empress Sato.
Yes, yeah, she was so much. I liked her character so much better in the Mirror Universe.
Yeah,
totally. She killed Archer. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
She killed Archer. And a lot of people have been waiting to see if Georgiou's a direct descendant.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think that would be cool. I mean,
Yeah.
it would only be like what, like maybe a grandmother. I mean, they're pretty close.
Yeah, sure, not too far off. Could be.
Not too far off, so I could totally see that happening. Let's
Especially since Hoshi was kind of young and George was a little bit on the older side too. Yeah.
Yep. All right. So we got something from Chris.
So I shouldn't give too much there, but I'll just say that like basically I advise whatever they ask me, right? And given they have a physicist and they have a biologist, that probably answers your question.
You're a natural scientist. What exactly does that cover? Like, what
so good question. So so I'm a professor of biology, but I'm dean of natural sciences. So as dean, that's an administrative job as opposed to a scientific job. So basically, I oversee 8 departments at Duke. So that's biology, chemistry, physics, computer science, math, statistics, psychology and neuroscience, and evolutionary anthropology. I don't know all those fields. I know like a little bit in all those fields, but it's more an administrative job, just in the sense of like there are all these other departments. So I help the chairs of those departments in terms of their administration and stuff.
So those are all the natural sciences. Those are all the
natural sciences, exactly.
So what are the unnatural sciences?
That's a great quote. I love it. So the other 3 divisions within arts and sciences are social sciences. So that would be things like sociology, political science, economics, all those things, or humanities, which is sort of arts and humanities. So, all the languages would be over there, literature, English, dance, all of them would be in the humanities.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say statistics. I hate statistics. I had to take statistics.
Aww, I love statistics.
You know what? It's interesting from a standpoint of what you can learn and what the end results tell you. I just didn't like trying to get there.
Yeah.
Well, what kills me is I was a communications major, but because it was marketing and because there's a side of marketing, with the qualitative and quantitative data and market research and all that. So I had to take a statistics course just for my major. And I just, oh my God, I hated it.
No.
I got a B. I don't know how.
Oh, good. I mean, so you excelled at it at least.
I was like, I don't know how that happened.
Yeah. Statistics is so important though too. Like in a sense, like we see statistics all the time. That's why I always tell people that like if you're going to take one class in that broader field, statistics might be the one to take. Because again, we see it all the time in every discipline. It doesn't matter what your specialty is. Because I mean, if you get the newspaper, there's references to statistics, and they're often really misleading. So knowing, at least a basic level, you probably have a huge advantage now when you see stuff. You're like, wait, that's not valid. You need to be doing blah 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 blah. Right. You have a leg up on just about everything.
Right. So assuming that we don't blow your cover here and we keep everything nice and non-specific to Discovery,
Sure.
Have they said anything about having you back? I mean, how secure?
You mean for consulting on other things?
Yeah, like how secure is being a consultant? Like once you're in, are you in, or they change it up?
We'll find out. I don't actually know. It's contract. Again, mine is contract based. So Dr. Aaron McDonald is on retainer. Mine's contract. So like they're like, we need help with this episode or this arc of episodes or something like that. So then they'll write a contract and they'll send it to me and do that. At any point in time, they could be like
letters, right?
Yeah, at any point in time, in theory, they could just be like, all right, we're not going to write a contract. Now, what does happen sometimes is like Dr. McDonald herself might just text me a random, like I've got a 1-sentence thing. And that then, it's not going to be associated with credits or anything like that. But I'll always try to help out with that sort of thing too. And often I don't even ask her what series it's for. So I'm like, I'm answering something like, I don't even know which show this is. It's literally
you could just be watching Picard one day and you're like, oh, that's what she was asking me about.
It's often just say like, is this verbiage okay in this sentence, or something like that. And I'm like,
I would think Picard, especially with the synthetic life forms, would just be a really interesting.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they keep going with that. I mean, I don't know that they're going to keep having the synthetics or if that's going to sort of,
Yeah, but I just think that would be a really interesting show to consult for with all the synthetics and that's a lot of
Well, I guess he's a synthetic now too.
What?
I guess he's a synthetic now too.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But I just think that there's a lot of hypothesizing that you could do. Like you could have fun like running with all these theories about synthetic life forms.
Totally.
All right, Chris is doing a humble brag about his partner.
Woohoo! Go particle physics.
Yeah, so why isn't he here, Chris? Why are you the one hanging out? Where is he? Tell him to get on another device and jump on in. We can just turn this into some sort of Neil deGrasse Tyson kind of show.
Right.
Sciencey. I've got like the Nova background, which is
Yeah. So I mean, the cool thing about Star Trek in general is the fact that they actually do try to do this stuff. So I mean, I always use the same. I feel bad about it. I always use the same sort of whipping dog thing. I always say, like, compare it to, say, like the CW superhero shows where they just, like, they don't even try. Right. I always like Flash and things like that. Like, even my son who's in high school is like, what? That doesn't make any sense at all. What stuff will happen there? It doesn't seem like they try in terms of, I mean, no offense to them. I love those shows. They're really fun. Now I'll give them that. But the fact that Star Trek and the showrunners, the writers, they want to have things accurate, and they make an effort to it. I mean, they don't have to do that. They could just say, like, whatever, we're just have an invisibility gun or whatever.
Right. No, it makes it. I mean, even if you don't realize that the science is based in, there's an authenticity that it adds to everything.
They have people on retainer. They're actually literally paying paychecks for people to get the science a little bit better rather than just making stuff up. And they could just Google a little bit and try to half-ass it, but they don't do that. I mean,
right. Well, it's so funny because I'll go back to MASH, which is one of my absolute favorite shows outside of the science fiction realm. Yeah. And they had, not only did they have medical advisors, they had people that were actually in the Korean War. Yeah. And were part of, nurses, I believe, and stuff so they were very keen on medical and everything. Yeah. So it's just funny because I've learned things like, I don't know why this ended up, but one of my favorite procedures now is an end-to-end anastomosis. And I learned that because Hawkeye used to talk about it.
What does that mean?
It's where you would take a section of, like, say, intestine, like, you have a section of your intestine has to be removed because it's damaged. Mm-hmm. So you remove the damaged section and you do an end-to-end anastomosis where you take the two clean ends from either side of the removed pieces and you suture them together.
Oh, interesting.
And that isn't it. And in fact, Alan Alda tells a story about how because he's a big science geek.
Oh yeah, he is.
And he was doing a show, I think, for PBS, like some sort of science show. And he was, I guess, in South America. Mm-hmm. And he was on a location and he doubled over in pain and they rushed him to the hospital. And it seems part of his intestine had died. Oh, wow. And it got twisted and cut the blood supply off and it had died. Wow. And the doctor came in to explain the procedure and he's like, yeah, I know exactly what you're going to do because I used to do it on TV.
Right. No, he's a huge advocate for science. I really admire a lot of what he's doing. Actually, musically, this Friday, Alan Alda and Anthony Fauci are giving a talk through the Duke Science and Society or Science and Society group. It's like, whoa, okay, that's intense.
I have loved Alan Alda since MASH.
Yeah. I loved him West Wing too. He was great as Vinnick.
Oh my God. Well, you know what I loved about that is that he played a Republican politico.
Yeah. But who was very scientifically aware and on top of stuff. It was, yeah.
There was another show with Donald Sutherland where he was the same kind of character.
Yeah.
And he played Hawkeye in the movie of MASH.
Oh, interesting.
Because it was airing at the same time. I'm like, wait a minute, both Hawkeyes are doing the same. This is the way my little brain works. Yeah. But Alan Alda's wife, this is a complete aside. So if I bore you guys, too bad. But Alan Alda's wife is an author. And if you ever watch MASH and you see him doing like his Yiddish thing, his wife is Jewish. And she was at a Jewish book festival, and my mom got me tickets because Alan Alda was doing the Q&A. She came to talk about her book. She was speaking about her book, and she came and he was doing the Q&A with her on stage. And I'm like, I really don't. I was literally in the same room with Alan Alda, and I was like, I mean, it was a huge room. It was a synagogue, and it was and I was just like, and I actually knew the person that had organized that particular panel. And the minute it was over, I ran downstairs and I found her. I'm like, is there any chance? She's like, nope. Yeah. I said, I want to meet. Nope. And I thought, you know what? I like, that's probably going to be the only chance I'm ever going to get to meet Alan Alda. But the fact that he was there for his wife and she was doing a book signing after, like, it meant a lot. Like, that's the type of person he is. Like, he probably figured there were going to be people there that would want to meet him, but he's like, this isn't my thing. This is her thing.
Yeah.
So I just have a lot of respect for him.
Yeah.
He's also got some very good books out. I've read both of them. His autobiography is Don't Ever Get Your Dog Stuffed, and it's hysterical.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, because his father actually did that. His dad got their family dog stuffed, and he's like, "Don't ever." That's where the title came from. But Anyway,
it's out there.
you and I are just like finding all these things we have in common outside of Enterprise.
Every time I hear the helicopter sound, I still start thinking of the MASH music.
Yeah, I don't blame you in the least. It's still, I mean, to this day, it's still one of my go-tos. If there's like nothing else on, and I'm like, Hulu has everything, so I could just even watch like my favorite episodes. I think my favorite incarnation on MASH is Hawkeye, Frank, and BJ. That very limited run with where was the three of them before, after Trapper and before Charles. That's probably my favorite little trio on there. But I guess we should probably get back to Star Trek stuff. I don't know how many of my fans out there are MASH people. See, all right. So Christopher, yes, Alan Alda is basically awesome in anything he does. But
totally.
Yeah, he was absolutely great in The West Wing. The West Wing actually has HBO Max. They are doing a stage reading of an old episode.
Ooh.
Like a revisiting of an old episode that they did during Corona, and I think it's available on HBO Max. But something
HBO Max in a couple of weeks, so we can watch the Wonder Woman 84.
Yes, I don't know if Magic Lasso's still with us, but I mean, hence Magic Lasso. He has a comic book YouTube channel. I don't know if you're into comics, but if you want a comic education, Magic Lasso's YouTube channel is absolutely where to go. And he and I are both anxiously awaiting the Wonder Woman 84 premiere. In fact, I went out and found this little gem at Target. It was only like $5.
Oh, nice!
Isn't that cool?
That is cool.
I'm sitting up here. I still haven't brought my Star Trek stamps up to show everybody. I got the stamps from England.
Oh, fantastic!
The Royal Mail. I got Reed was on them. I'm like, how can I not get them? Because, normally, if you're only representing two people from Enterprise, it's not going to be Reed and Archer. It's going to be like Archer and DePaul.
Yeah.
But Royal Stamps, British actor, they got all the Brits on there. They got Maria, they got Jason Isaacs, they got Dominic. I'm missing people. They got Alexander Siddig. So it's like all the were represented. But real quick, so in case anybody Enterprise fans out there, Connor Trenier just shared something on Twitter earlier today, and it was so great. It's a video of a girl who was just watched for the very first time ever the final episode of Enterprise. And her very, very mean father taped her whole reaction. And she was crying, and Connor retweeted it, and he shared we all cried a little, and I sat down and watched it. I'm like, oh, I still can't watch it. I can't watch it. And a lot of people on Twitter were saying the same thing. It's like, it ends with Terra Prime. No, which is the next one. Yeah, no. I mean, Terra Prime was perfect. They were Trip and DePaul were holding hands, and then it just went to the credits.
Yeah. That would have been a good ending. Yeah.
That would have been. I mean, Brendan Braga has apologized plenty of times, and a lot of people said if it had been a season finale instead of a series finale.
Yeah.
I'm not sure anybody would have, but then would they have killed Trip off and then tried to have a 5th season? You can't do
that.
What
I would say, like, do we know he's dead? We don't know he's dead.
Well,
it seems like he's dead, but maybe.
Have you read the books? Do you read any of the Star Trek novels?
Not. I used to a long time ago, but actually, I stopped reading them before Enterprise came out. So.
I started reading them after I got back into Enterprise because I thought, well, this is a way to carry it over.
Yeah.
And I had known that that in the novels, Trip is not dead. He has been resurrected by Section 31.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah.
And I'm okay.
I like that post.
Yeah, exactly. So he's been undercover with Section 31. He's been doing stuff in the Romulan War. The novel I'm reading now, and I haven't even finished it because it's so poorly written. My problem with the novels is, and this goes for anything, Star Wars, Star Trek, and Star Wars both, because I'm huge in the Star Wars novels as well. I love that they're continuing these stories. My problem is that they let different writers do it. No, obviously you have to. I mean, one writer, you can't just have one writer.
That'd be exhausting, yeah.
Yeah, it would be. They'd burn out, and I get that. But sometimes the writing is just terrible. And I'm just like, and the novel that I'm reading right now is just bad. and it's like Trip is back on the. I think he's working on Malcolm's a captain now, and he's got his own ship. And Trip is on the ship, but he had all this plastic surgery, so he's an engineer, but he's a different. And I'm like, this is just too confusing. And like Malcolm and T'Pol and like one or two other people know that it's really Trip, but he's got red hair now and a new name and new feature. And I'm like.
Are the novels internally consistent with each other, or are they all just independent threads off the show?
I've just been jumping around so much. I mean, there's a whole series on the Romulan War, and I've only touched one, but that was a big thing because that was supposed to be a setup from the show.
Yeah, that's right. So it was clear they were headed in that direction. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's great that they picked that up and they're running with that. But then there's also a bunch of one-offs.
Yeah.
That are just, you know, like a new adventure, you know, like you'd sit down and watch like an hour show. It's like, here's a new adventure.
Yeah.
And some of them I read and I'm like, yeah, it's pretty good. And some of them I'm just like, no, these characters wouldn't say that, or this wouldn't have to be, all right. Now this is coming from an author. He said,
oh, perfect. Good to know. Good to know.
But, yeah, but consistency is one thing. It's just quality of writing. Is what, you know, it's the same thing. Like they're like, especially with the Star Wars novels, because they tend to have these really long arcs in the novels. And, you know, you might have 2 or 3 people writing for this series. And it's like, you're going along and it's great. And it's great. And then I would get to like this one book and it was so poor. I'm like, you're killing me, but I have to finish reading your stupid book so I can get to the next book. So that, you know, I think what happened too was I got spoiled because my first Star Trek novel was Mzadi. And I loved that novel. I mean, I was always a Riker Troy person. Like I'm one of the people that can say I actually finally got my ship, because I mean I had to wait till a freaking movie came out, but I got it. I got my Deanna and Riker, and it was so well done. But Mzadi, I loved it, and I was holding every other Star Trek novel up to the Peter David bar, and you just can't, because not every writer writes like that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Yeah, exactly. So they could, it's like character. The one now, what cracked me up is the one Enterprise novel that I read. Now, a lot of people they've been really kind of not nice. They keep saying things like, you know, well, Reed was gay. No, Reed was not gay. I've always said he's not gay. He had no game. He couldn't score with an Orion. So let's be clear. He couldn't score with an Orion. He's just bad. You know, and the whole thing with, like, you know, when they run into the future Enterprise in season 3, and it's like, yeah, the Reed line died with me or whatever.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
It came to an unceremonious end, I think.
Yeah,
is how
E squared. I remember that episode. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And then I read one of the novels, and they finally give Reed a girl, and then she dies.
Oh.
Like, oh, but at least that kind of fits in with poor Reed. Like the way they developed the relationship and how clumsy it almost was, which really kind of fit in with that character. But then just to be true to form, because, you know, yeah, she died.
I guess it's like the Worf effect, because Worf had what's her name, Kalar, who died, and then Troy, who married Riker, and then Jadzia, who died. It's like, okay.
It's like, yeah, nobody needs to be involved with Worf.
Yeah, no.
I mean, we love Worf to death, but yeah, he needs to like stay off the dating apps, because there is like a Star Trek based dating. There are a couple Star Trek based dating websites that I've checked out. Just out of curiosity, because I mean, there are actually apps out there there's one called like Dragonfly, which is for any sci-fi. And they're like, pick your 3 top fandoms so that you can let people.
Yeah.
Yeah, but everybody on there is like 20 something. I'm like, yeah, no. I'm like, what? Well, it's the same thing. Wizard World has these sci-fi dating rooms, like sci-fi speed dating. And I actually went up at one point, and I'm like, so what's like the 30? I'm like, and at that point that was too young for me. And I'm like, yeah, just thanks. I'm not going to play this one. I'm like, you're better off matchmaking at a convention, I think.
That's what I was thinking too. Like, you know, there are the people who like, especially if you go to a local Star Trek fan club. So I hang out with the one here in Raleigh, the USS Kitty Hawk, and I'm probably below the median age in it, and I'm pushing 50. So
well, maybe I'll have to look into that then.
yeah.
The one thing I will say about the final episode of Enterprise, and granted, I seriously haven't watched it, I think, since the last time. I intend to watch it. I have it on Blu-ray. I have Enterprise on Blu-ray. I've been very slowly making my way through it. I won't watch it on Heroes and Icons whenever Heroes and Icons, the TV station Heroes and Icons gets to that point, because they run all the series in order. Whenever Heroes and Icons gets, I'm like, nope, not watching it. But I'm gonna watch it when I hit it on the Blu-ray. Anyway, I have a Star Trek tattoo. I have the Enterprise on my back, on my lower back. I have the Star Trek. I have Enterprise, and then it says "Where My Heart Will Take Me" around it. Because for anybody that doesn't know, that is the title of the theme song. They changed it. Oh. Well, Lasso, you need to try it and let me know.
I've never done that.
But no, they actually did. They changed the name of it. When Rod Stewart sang it, it was Faith of the Heart. When Russell Watson did it for the show, they changed it to Where My Heart Will Take Me. Anyway. So I have, but it's next to an old Pegasus tattoo.
Oh.
And I was debating what to do about the Pegasus tattoo because I
You're talking about the horse Pegasus, not the USS
Yeah,
Pegasus.
the horse Pegasus. The horse Pegasus was my first tattoo, so I'm sentimentally attached to it. But I didn't realize when I got the Enterprise how close they were. And I'm like, I gotta do something like the Pegasus tattoo right next to the Enterprise. I'm like, so I was thinking maybe of being cute and maybe getting a Death Star, like just erasing the entire Pegasus tattoo and getting a Death Star over it, because that would be funny. But also the Death Star would be this big and the Enterprise is this big.
Oh yeah.
Like, yeah.
It could be a distance thing. Like the Death Star is just much further in.
Yeah.
Perspective.
But then I thought, but it's my first tattoo, and do I really want to cover it up? So a friend of mine that I met in 2018 in Vegas had the perfect idea. He's like, it's a Pegasus. He's like, get the Pegasus's registry number around it.
Oh yeah.
And then he said, because then people who know will know. And I thought without that final episode of Enterprise, there wouldn't be the Enterprise tie-in to the Pegasus.
True. That's true.
So if for no other reason, that is the only reason that I'm glad that it is what it is, because now my Pegasus tattoo makes sense next
That's
to
amazing. That's amazing.
And I got it. And Trent was the first person I sent the picture to. I'm like, look, Trent, I actually did it. And me being paranoid, I checked on like Memory Alpha. I was like triple checking the numbers because I'm like, if I get this wrong.
Oh yeah, that would suck if you got it wrong. That'd be terrible.
I know. I'm like, if I get this wrong, it's gonna suck. But anybody that comes to STLV or whatever they're calling it now, anybody that makes it out to Vegas in August,
55-year mission or something.
Yeah, the 55-year mission. Anybody that makes it out to the 55-year mission in August, assuming that I've got the monokini body that I'm supposed to be working towards, but God, they might be able to see it out by the pool, because I might be hanging out by the pool for some of the pool parties. And if you want to see my little Pegasus and my Enterprise, because I'm so proud of them because they are so well done. I actually got referred to this tattoo artist because he's a sci-fi geek. And a friend of mine told me where to go. And yeah, the guy is a total like nerd. And I'm like, well, if I'm going to go get a tattoo, I'm going to go to a shop where the guy that runs it is a nerd. Now, of course, I couldn't get, he was way out of my price range. But I figure if he's training people, then it's going to be good. So, let's see. Mostly the site was.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, my other problem with the Star Trek dating sites, and I guess it's because they're little baby sites as opposed to like OkCupid and stuff that can afford to do free. They don't do anything for free.
Oh.
And I am not at that point where I'm going to spend my money on a monthly dating app just to tell people to go piss off, because I don't.
Yeah, fair. Totally fair.
Yeah, but I don't know. They don't have singles mixers at STLV. Maybe that's something we should run by Creation. That could be a fun night.
I think so. I go to Dragon Con a lot. I'm married, so I don't actually participate in these things. But I thought I remembered at Dragon Con, where I've gone before, that they have like a Dragon Con for singles area or
that would be fun, because then you could like mix and mingle. As long as it's not conflicting with Enterprise Karaoke. I will do I have sung at Enterprise Karaoke every year in Vegas. The one year I did Bad Romance, which was a bad idea because I thought I could change it up and do something fun. So yeah, you will catch me singing Where My Heart Will Take Me. I've done that twice so far in Vegas, and it's been amazing. So
that's
so
awesome.
much fun. And Connor's great because he defends it because people are up there, and he's like, it's the only one with lyrics. The only one you can actually sing.
Are you supposed to do the do 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 do? I mean, what are you supposed to do?
Yeah, you can't. Exactly. So it's the only one with lyrics. So it's the only one you get to sing. Are you planning on heading out to Vegas?
I did write to Creation and asked if I could give it. So the last time they had one in 2019, I gave some talks out there. So I did write them asking if they would be interested in having me come back. They haven't even acknowledged the email yet, so I don't know.
Yeah, I just emailed them about something too, and Stephanie hasn't written me back.
Oh, thanhanks for coming, Christopher.
Thanks, Chris. We love having you as always. Yeah, because Lambda Quadrant has a booth. We're set up with a booth.
Yep.
So we're going to be doing that, and then, but we want to do some other things. So we're trying to have a panel. So I've been talking to Stephanie.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, it's tricky for me because last time I got set up there for last year, CBS was the one who set me up with the panels I gave. So this is different now, right? Because now CBS has no involvement. Like the contact I had, it would have nothing to do with it anymore. So I wrote to somebody else over there who's actually with Creation. Like I said, it's been maybe a little bit over a week or something like that, but like I haven't even gotten we got your email. It's just like nothing.
I mean, I have contacts over there. Just from, like I said, volunteering actually kind of helped because I got to know like who
I bet you guys know some of the people
within the thing. Yeah. So like the booth is one person, and then like panels or somebody else.
Yeah. I'll put in the chat who it was I wrote. I won't put it in the public part because I don't want to embarrass somebody.
All right. But that's the thing. Okay, so what does domestic have to say? In Vegas now. If it happens, can I buy you a drink or two, whatever the bar will be? I would love that. The name of the bar is Jimmy's Place because it can't be Quarks anymore.
Oh, it's true. Oh.
It can't be Quarks anymore, but I can guarantee you that, again, just to plug myself, if you want to find me anywhere near the bar, assuming that it's in the same spot that it's been the last forever, I will be in that general vicinity for Enterprise Karaoke on Thursday night. That is a definite. I don't know what I'm doing any other night, but I am definitely going to be there. So if you want to buy me a drink while I'm sitting waiting my turn, like I said, assuming that Trip Tucker Sprinkles doesn't get me knocked out of the running.
I'm assuming it's not going to be called the CBS All Access Room anymore either.
Oh yeah, this is very true. Yes, you are correct. That is the person to be talking to.
Cool. That's good. Good to know.
yeah. We can talk about that more later off.
Yeah, that's fine.
But I'll tell you about that. But I plan to be there. Lambda Quadrant plans to be there. We're planning whatever we're planning, and we would love to have. I love putting people on the spot because now it's on tape. So, you definitely are invited to anything that we are doing.
So thank you. I love you guys. It's great. Yeah, thank you.
We're working on some things right now. Some things that were suggested at Holocon 3. God, all of these things are running together. There's some really cool stuff coming up. Virtual TrekCon is doing a 12 days of content thing.
Oh yeah.
You're involved with that.
I know I'm aware of it. I'm not doing it.
You haven't. Oh, okay. I didn't know because that's how we met because you were working.
Yeah. I was just my job was just for the
rooms.
The virtual vendor room. Exactly. The promenade.
But we all love Ryan and Sirach.
Ryan's fantastic as a Sirach. Yeah.
Yeah. I am still planning this. I have my fingers crossed 12 ways to Sunday. I was hoping to be spending New Year's Eve out in LA. So we'll see. It could, probably won't, still could, don't know. Technically, the 3 weeks of shutdown is supposed to be over. If they don't extend it, it is going to be over right before I'm supposed to go out there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we're going to see what happens with that. But I actually said, like, Ryan, you want to go get a drink or something? He's like, I'm sort of behaving like there's a pandemic going on. Can I come wave at you? I'll just like... Wesley, yours actually one of my other favorite people that lives out there. He played Will on Land of the Lost.
Oh, cool.
And I met him last year in Vegas, and he is one of the sweetest, nicest, most generous people on the planet. I adore him to death. I mean, he lives in Palm Springs, but he is also in one of the high-risk groups, and he and his partner are quarantining together. I'm like, Wesley, I'll just drive by and wave if I have time. We just like socially distance, say hello. Just because I miss him. I was supposed to have seen him by now. We were supposed to all have done.
Yeah, that's been the toughest thing about this year, is not having that contact we've had with so many people. I mean, it's nice that we have. I mean, everybody's gotten adept at Zoom and StreamYard and all these things in the past year, so we have a little bit of sort of at least virtual contact, but it's not the same as being able to come give somebody a hug and say, "Hey, let's go," get lunch together.
You listen to my Connor podcast, and that's like what Connor was saying, was he couldn't wait for all this to be over because he wants to hug people.
Yeah, and that was back in May or something, right? That was way back.
Yeah, it was right. I think they hadn't even, LA had been shut down for maybe a month because it was supposed to end in April. And I was like, can I get on that list for hugs? He's like, score. I mean, he's a huggy guy, so I can't wait to get one of those hugs and just see how well he's maintained, because he's now.
He has his home gym going.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, I've been really bad with that. But any final thoughts on Star Trek or Enterprise or anything?
Nope. I mean, I love it. I love it all.
More love.
And the other thing I love too, and I'll mention this in passing too, is I love not just the shows, but I love Star Trek fans too. So I mean, at conventions, on the Star Trek cruise, there's so many people who are not only excited about just the content, the plots, and things like that, but they're, as a scientist, I find that they're really excited about talking about the science. They want to know, like, oh, is this possible? Could this be done? And they're really interested in talking about it. So, like on the cruise is one example. When I started doing, just as a chance to talk to more people, I started having what I called office hours. These would be like 8:30 in the morning. This is super early on a cruise ship. Think about what people do on cruise ships. People party all the time on cruise ships. I had these office hours at 8:30 in the morning, like on the Lido deck or whatever, like in the place where. So I thought what I'd do is I'll grab some breakfast and then maybe a couple people will show up. They're like, I would show up a half hour early. There'd be this line of people, like ready to talk science at like 8 in the morning.
Right? These are the people that just like stayed up.
That's true. They may have been like up from the night before. It's true. It's possible. Yeah. But just that level of excitement about science and Trek and meeting new people, I was like, wow, this is amazing.
It's truly amazing, like the Star Trek family that I've gained since.
It feels, family is the right word. It feels like that. Yeah.
And and like I said, I mean, a lot of this I owe to having met Connor and Dominic and Nicole DeBoer and Chase were all there, and they really reignited that passion in me to start getting back into Star Trek, because I hadn't gone to conventions since the 90s.
Oh wow.
Before I went to before I went to the 50th anniversary, and I literally stumbled across that one. I didn't even realize that they were having it. It was literally right down the road from my house.
Yeah.
And that's why I ended up going. And just hanging out with those guys and singing karaoke and like hanging out in the bar after hours and all this other stuff was just so incredibly amazing. And I'm like, I really kind of need to start. And I went by myself. That's the thing. And I didn't feel alone. So
that's amazing. This was the one in Vegas, the 50th anniversary one in Vegas since 2016.
No, this was 2016 in New Jersey.
Oh, the New Jersey one. Oh, okay.
Like Vegas would have been the beginning of August, and Jersey was the end of August.
Gotcha. I was at the Vegas one that year, but I wasn't at the New Jersey.
Well, yeah, because you had said your son got to talk to Bakula.
Yeah,
that was the last one he did was for the anniversary.
Gotcha.
No, I did. That was the next to last Jersey one. They did a Jersey 2016. They did a Jersey 2017. Then they canceled 2018.
Yeah.
And now the 55-year mission tour is going to be back in Jersey in September.
Oh, okay. And I think I saw that. Yeah. It's like the weekend after Dragon Con or something, right?
Yeah, for some reason. Yeah, it is. It's September 10th, 11th, and 12th. Yeah. And for some reason, they're doing one in Jacksonville the same weekend.
Yeah, I saw that. That was very strange. And they were splitting up like some Star Trek people at one. Yeah.
Is that a typo?
Yeah. No, I thought that was strange too.
This is what kills me though, is that the one in Jersey obviously is in driving distance. The one in Jacksonville has all the people that I'd rather see. Because I'm sorry, if you look at the list for Jacksonville, you have to figure Jacksonville is going to get a Rat Pack performance and New Jersey isn't.
It looks like that from who's there, yeah.
It doesn't look like that from who's there. And I'm going, like, Chase is one of my favorite people, and Jeff.
Yeah, Chase is wonderful.
Jeff and Max, and I'm like,
all of them.
I actually have a friend in Jacksonville. I'm like, maybe I could find some place to stay and maybe it's like screw New Jersey. Unless New Jersey gets somebody more interesting to me than who's already going to be down in
Maybe it'll be a last minute edition. Bacula will be there.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sorry. I have to be honest. If Connor and Dominic end up in New Jersey, I'm staying up here. If they end up in Florida, that's where you'll find me.
Yeah.
If they split them between the two, which would be stupid, but if they split them between the two, then I'm going to have a problem. Fly down for a day. Fly back.
You deliver a message between them.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, Mohamed, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. This was so much fun. And I think we will have to have you after Discovery ends and you are free to discuss whatever, and then you can answer anybody else's questions. So save your questions. If you had specific Discovery questions, save them, because at some point, probably in January, I will be having Dr. Mohamed Noor back with us. But until then, and until next week, when my special guest, I'm having another guest. Next week, it's going to be Melissa Longo. Yay!
Oh, fantastic. I love Melissa.
Finally getting Melissa on just in time to order stuff for Christmas. She might not be able to get it to you by Christmas.
No, that'd be tough. Yeah. Walking Art by Melissa. Make sure to look up her store. Fantastic stuff.
Please do. And she's going to be talking about Aaron and art and Star Trek and all these wonderful, absolutely wonderful things with us next week. And again, Mohamed, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Got messages for you from Robert.
Oh, thank you, Robert. Nice to meet you too.
And Domestic, thank you guys so much. Thanks for putting up with all the MASH talk. So until next week, everybody have a great week. Stay home, stay safe, and as always, live long and prosper.
Hey, this is Connor Turner. You've been listening to the NX7062 podcast with Stephanie. Enjoy your evening.